Michael Spicer, thanks for joining us.
Hello there.
You have become a bit of a sensation over the last 12 months, and covering politics in Westminster, it now is at the point where you watch an interview and you think of you, and you think, well, is Michael Spicer going to do that room next door thing to that? Have you kind of got used to that now, of people sending you saying, do this one, do this one?
Yeah, I've got people saying, you should definitely do this one. But it's only recently where people have gone, you know what, I can't watch these things now without thinking of you. So it's very weird to be in people's subconscious that way. But yeah, it's a very flattering position, yeah.
Take us back to the first one you did. I think I'm right in saying it was it the Boris Johnson Bus one?
Yeah.
It was the interview with Ross Kempsell where he was asked what his favourite hobby was or what he liked to do in his spare time.
What do you do to relax? What do you do to switch off?
I don't know.
I like to...
Don't just sit there saying nothing. Say something. You paint, you make things.
Paint. Or I make things.
Don't just sit there saying nothing.
I have a thing where I make models of
sheep, cars, fried eggs.
when I was in where Mary.
No, shut up! I've got it. Buses. Say buses right now. Say buses.
Buses.
You make models of buses.
I make models of.
No, you don't.
Talk us through how you ended up doing that one.
Well, he was. That went viral of its own accord because it was kind of seen as a fairly comic. Well, also a very baffling moment because a normal human being would say what they did, wouldn't they? Rather than have to go, what do I do? And then having this kind of internal struggle about whether he should tell the truth, lie, make something up, because he's just that sort of person, isn't he? He's just not wired like the rest of us. And just the way he was looking off into the distance suggested that, there could be somebody next door feeding him like a perfect line, like he's waiting for somebody to feed lines. And so it just came to me, okay, all right, I could do a man in the room next door. So I just, when I got home from work that day, I just did it. And that was that.
So you say you got home from work. So at that stage, what were you doing? Because I read that you've tried over several years to kind of become a comedian or are a comedian. So what were you doing at that stage in your life?
I was a copywriter for a shipping company, and all the time I was there, I was doing stuff on the side. So I was in the MASH report, and I'd just get little acting jobs and little comedy jobs here and there, but they would never pay the bills. So I'd always have to have a full-time job. So I had to, write this thing in my lunch hour and then go home and film it.
And so when you did the Boris one, this is a question, it's a rubbish question that everyone asks, but did you expect it to do so well? I suppose the answer is no, but then when it took off, did it surprise you? Or you think, oh, actually, there's something in this. This is not just a one-off, I can keep doing this. Well,
I've gone viral in the past, and it always takes you by surprise. But when I did it and posted it and started seeing my notifications just go bump, 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 I just thought, oh, good, that's a good one. That'll get like 200 likes or whatever and a few more followers. That's nice. Because I've been on Twitter for 10 years and you just kind of get a mindset that you just go, right, that works. That'll get a bit of traction. That's nice. But it wasn't until the following morning that I realized that it was still going. And that people were watching it overnight in different, countries, different time zones. And then it kind of got up to about 1 million views, like within 24 hours or something like that. And I just thought, that, because it happened in the past, I just thought, right, well, that's nice. That happened that one day. Nothing really comes from it. And it never does really with viral content. You do a sketch, people move on. But with this is a character that people really enjoyed watching. And who I've really got to thank for keeping it going is the Dalai Lama, because the very next day, the Dalai Lama said, I don't mind there being a female Dalai Lama in the future, but she has to be attractive. So straight away, people were saying, you could be a room next door man for this interview as well. And that's when I thought, oh, right, he's a character that could always be in the room next door. So it just gained momentum that way.
That video of the Dalai Lama made me laugh so much, because in the end he says the thing that you're advising to say, which is like, it's about inner beauty.
Real beauty is inner beauty.
And then he still says, but it really helps if they're good looking or something.
But, yeah, he says, but if they just had a bit of makeup, he does this, bit of makeup.
Talking of videos you did before, one of the videos that I saw pop up of yours recently, which I assume was kind of before all this, was, I think it seems to happen every time Man United lose a football match.
Oh, yeah.
Because that video you do of saying, it's Manchester United.
Yeah.
For goodness sake. It's like a minute, and it is so accurate. As a football fan, you just realise that's the cliche used every time they lose a match.
I did do that very early on. It was just after Room Next Door, but I did do that very early on. And what made me do that was because of TikTok, because TikTok's great for short form comedy, and they can give you this instant green screen. So I thought, I am so fed up of pundits just going, this is Manchester United Football Club we're talking about here, and thinking that that's okay to, that's analysis. That's enough.
That's enough.
Yeah. So he's another character I'd love to do more with, because, pundits just fall into these awful cliches, don't they?
How do you go about picking them? Because there are some videos that I think I've seen and thought, that would be really good for you to do, and then you haven't done them, and then other ones I don't expect you to do, you've done. So how do you pick and choose?
It's interesting, really. I think I space them out. So I guess if I've done one and then something else comes up, I just probably leave it, because I just don't want it to get too thin, too boring. So I do space them out, and I do make sure that I'm not bombarding people with just like the same material. I mean, like, for instance, with Boris Johnson, I do feel like I've done him, because he falls into those same disastrous holes whereby he either lies, or he doesn't have the facts and the figures that he thinks he should have, or he says something, massively surreal, or he says something in Latin and thinks he can get away with it, or he says, or he tries to be funny and it falls flat. All of those things I've covered. And so when he appears again, it just feels like, oh, right, well, I've kind of done him. So I'm kind of on the lookout, really, for new, fresh meat, frankly. And if I mean, that doesn't mean that, if you take somebody like Donald Trump, who will just say things that are absolutely outrageous and you can't ignore, then you will, I will just go for it, because I know that there's an audience there waiting for it.
The one with you in the car where I only noticed, maybe just me being thick, I only noticed about halfway through the video that there was a car in the background, and that's you were in the car, and I thought, and then the alarm went off, and it was that was very clever. Do you? I asked this question to Matt Ford. We had Matt Ford, the comedian, on the podcast last week, who's doing Spitting Image now. And I sort of asked the question, which I'll ask you, which is, when you're talking a bit about people like Boris Johnson and Donald Trump, do you find it's harder now to sort of satirise them and parody them, because they're kind of almost caricatures of themselves, and it's quite difficult. I know Amanda Iannucci in the past has said that bringing the thick of it back would just be impossible, because it's gone so far beyond it. No one could believe what happened to Theresa May in that political speech. You couldn't write that in the thick of it.
Yes.
So is it hard to do that sometimes?
Yes. Well, I mean, you've hit the nail on the head. I don't really do that. I don't do parodies of the characters, because they are characters. I think you're absolutely right. How can you parody somebody like Donald Trump with his bizarre spray tan appearance and weird hair, and his suggestion that people should inject themselves with bleach? How can you then have a character who's like a caricature of that? That's my personal opinion. So I think that what I'm doing and what other people have done is just react to the actual words coming out of their mouth. It's just reacting, because my character is kind of like a moral person. He's stuck in the middle, and he's trying to control the narrative a bit and not make them say the disastrous things that they say. So it's different in that respect. I would never dream of doing an impression of these people, because it's right there, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. You talked earlier about producing sort of viral content that doesn't really then kind of go anywhere. It sort of just stays. You've managed to sort of break out of that, I think, though, now.
Yeah.
And you've got this book out now, Secret Political Advisor. Talk us through that, how you kind of came to think, well, how can I turn this idea, this character that I've got, which is just perfect for those sort of 2-minute videos online, into a sort of more substantial book, which you can kind of go a bit more deeper into it.
Yeah, first of all, I did think, how could I expand his universe? And then every time I did that, like write a sitcom or whatever, I just thought, no, this is too much like the thick of it. So I thought about different ways of developing him a bit. The book came about. I mean, it did start with a publisher saying, "Do you want to write a book?" So I just went,
which helps.
Yeah. So I thought, oh, okay. Well, so perhaps the most interesting thing would just be like hacking his phone and getting his diaries and stuff like that, and then just covering because obviously the last 4 years, from the beginning of Theresa May's premiership right up until now, you've got this tumultuous time in the UK and the US with all sorts of horrendous things going on, with constant Brexit negotiations, the disaster of all of that, and then leading right up to coronavirus. So I thought that would be a great period of time where you could have this character at the center of it all, being the advisor at the center, and you would read his WhatsApp messages and his texts and his diary entries and things like that. And I just thought that would be a nice way of bringing him out of the room next door. So it's not just a rehash of old sketches. It's all new stuff.
And final question, because you've got to go, you're a busy man, but what does it feel like to sort of become a sort of name in the world of sort of the world we occupy, in the kind of world of politics? Because there's sort of, you are now very famous in our world, because we just love anything that parodies politicians or takes the mick or whatever. But you are now sort of part of their furniture almost, of like sort of political narrative on Twitter. How does it feel to be a part of that?
It feels very strange, because when I started this, I felt like it would just be a good sketch. I didn't, The Guardian described me as the chief satirist, or satirist in chief. And I just thought, am I? Because before this, I had virtually a sort of allergic reaction to political interviews, because they're just so squirmy. They're so difficult to pin down. They're so difficult to get a concrete human response out of. That I barely knew what Donald Trump even sounded like before I did this, because I used to see him and switch that television off.
Right, really?
Yeah, because you just knew what you would get, didn't you?
You've almost taken that sort of cynicism and that instinctive, almost allergic reaction, and used it to think, well, that's you're pitching it at those people that like yourself, that have this kind of,
Yes, and I've just recently been taking a long time for the live show. I've been editing a little video insert for the live show, because I'm touring next year, and I've been editing an interview with Priti Patel. And ordinarily, I wouldn't go anywhere near anything that Priti Patel says, and I've been having to edit like to the precise second every single word that she's been saying in this interview, and it's driving me nuts, because it's not my world. Normally it wouldn't be my world, and it is just boiling it down to personalities and what these people are actually like, and trying to highlight their failings, their inconsistencies. So I suppose I'm always a comedian first, but a satirist second.
It seems like a good tone to end on. Michael Spicer, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.